Awesome. So as I mentioned, we have Stacy Penson here, the assistant head of school of Temple Beth Shalom, the innovative school of Temple Beth Shalom. And to not waste any more time, I will let Stacy take the wheel here after you.
Hi, everybody. Yes, thank you. Thank you and welcome. I'm sitting here with Miriam. Miriam is our studio educator, and we'll get into a little bit more of what that means for us at our school. We are a K-5 school. We have started about 6 years ago with just kindergarten, and every year we've added a grade. And next year will be our first year of having a full K-5. So that's very exciting for us. And we are a small school. We have one class per grade. And we are down here in Miami Beach, Florida. You can go to the next page there. And the innovative school was started to disrupt the status quo of education. It's a progressive elementary school designed to encourage and develop our understanding and practices within the social constructivist approach to learning regarding the whole child. When you meet the needs of the whole child and listen to what their needs are, you are putting the learner at the center by building on their strengths. And we talk about at our school, the 3 buckets here are academic excellence, our innovative approaches, and sorry, one sec there, I can't see that, and I know it, and the social emotional self. Teaching and learning at the innovative school is a joyful approach to education that fosters inquiry-based learning, promotes academic excellence, nurtures human relationships, and inspires a growing passion for learning. You go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Here we have Leo. We had asked the learners, because they couldn't be with us today, to send in some of their quotes about our school. So Leo was letting us know that he likes the way that the teachers give them different ways to learn and work in reading, math, and writing. Next slide. And the learning objectives that we anchor on at the Innovative School come from milestones. The milestones help in development of student agency by setting clear expectations, serving as a tool for appropriate goal setting, creating a clear way to track student progress, and providing a means to discuss that progress. We use the Altitude Learning platform in our school. Go ahead and go to the next page, please. And you can go again, Lazarus, thank you. We measure progress towards competencies over time, and we provide feedback to the learners across academic and social emotional learning in a way that's meaningful, efficient, and actionable. Progress is a portfolio of evidence that's organized by milestone. And then the teachers and we stream out the information through the Altitude Learning platform to the families so that they can always see where their learner is in their progression, and they can learn about the things that we're doing in school. Go ahead. Our families are looking for educational excellence that nurtures positive learning dispositions, creative 21st century skills and habits, and a joyful learning habitat. We're going to take you through a little bit of what the day looks like at our school. And again, it's the early childhood, kinder through 5th grade. So every day starts with a morning meeting where we check in and we set our intentions for the day. Classroom community is developed and the learners authentically witness the value of multiple perspectives. We ask questions. We kind of take a temperature of how everyone's feeling. We talk about the work for that day and where the children want to start their day. We use tons of materials as a way to express learning. You see on the slide to the side there is playful learning. We believe that play is a key into their learning, and we offer lots of our opportunities throughout the day for them to playfully learn. Go ahead. Our story workshop connects literacy with the arts. It suggests that the use of materials can play an integral role in language development, and it strongly supports learners to see themselves as authors. So in the literacy studio, we have a story workshop, a reading workshop, and a writing workshop. And learners, although they are doing what is assigned as far as the objectives and the goals to meet their milestones, they can have choice of when they do it and where they do it. They're not traditionally sitting in desks of rows. They can move around and they can go at their own pace. We meet them where they are. Okay. We also like to take the kids out of school as much as possible. For a few years there, we couldn't. We brought a lot of guest speakers in through the virtual space, but now this year we were very excited to get out there and explore. And we'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about our projects, but every single day the kids are outside. We're really lucky to be down here in South Florida where the weather is pretty good most of the time. Our kids are there, you see, on a kayak. And in the middle picture there is our studio space, which you're going to learn about. And we have language learning, free play outside, music, and the maker space. Deep studies are the way we have the learners learn about social studies and science. The ideas are usually presented by the teachers after the teaching team talks about what is going on in the curriculum, but the way that the learners are able to learn about that subject is all on their own. We kind of see where their interests lie within that big overreaching arc. And year to year, nothing ever looks the same. It's hard to know what will happen. We just have those learning arcs out there and we go off of where the learners' interests are. Next slide, please. I'm going to turn it over to our studio educator. Miss Miriam's here with me to talk a little bit about one of the projects we did this year.
So this project, the Fairchild Challenge, is based in the garden, but the actual story begins a year earlier during the pandemic when there was a sense of broken connections and feeling confined because of the pandemic and the kids wanting to be out, wanting to be outside. And not just wanting to be outside, but to have a direct connection with nature and the sentience of nature, have these kind of experiences that go beyond language and academia. So that was a fantastic year, and the children, they started saying what they needed and wanted to see in the garden. We started a butterfly garden. The animals that they explored started off from ladybugs and caterpillars and went all the way up the ladder to geckos, snakes, and iguanas even. So there was an immense amount of enthusiasm, and their final project, which they devised and created, was to create a welcome center and to actually guide people through the garden. And show them all the different things, all the space is part of an extension of their own personal space and that level of excitement. So based on that, this year, we decided to open it up to the entire school and propose all the way up to 4th grade if they wanted to participate in the Fairchild Tropical Garden Science Challenge. Because it was offered to them, at first they were like, well, we don't know. So then that's when we, took a step back and decided to do a field trip as a school and have an immersive experience at Fairchild Tropical Garden, where the children got to actually see, feel, hear, taste, smell, get a whole picture of what it means to be in a botanical world. And would they like to bring this challenge into our school? And then, of course, when they got back, they decided that yes. So this year, according to the grade level, either they filmed and made the 5-minute video that was turned into the competition. All grade levels participated in making the garden beds, learning about permaculture techniques, planting, amending soil, watering the garden, etc. So that is one project that we did together as a school that is an example of an ongoing project, because this year the kinder kids are the keepers of the garden, and that will be passed on to next year's kinder class, and they'll define what that means to them. But that is one of our projects. So next slide. And now Team Seas is a different type of project. And the one thing before I jump into Team Seas that I kind of wanted to share is that what makes it possible for us to work with the kids in a way where curriculum is emergent and fluid and nimble and responsive to what they bring to the table is because of a Reggio philosophy of the image of the child. And the image of the child, although it's an idea, it's more than that, it's an actual practice. It's something that you have to do every day, work on this image of the child. And the way that as an educator, you do that is by learning how to deeply listen to children. And you do that through the reflection, through reflective processes, through taking notes, through videotaping and going back and you know, kind of reflecting on the day, seeing the pieces that you missed. Sometimes they're the most important pieces. And constantly practicing having that sense of connection with children where they are coming and meeting you at the table as an equal. So that's the basis of both these projects. Now, Team Seas was spontaneous and it happened this Earth Day. We just brought up as a topic of conversation, what do you want to do for the environment? And they were like, coming up with all these ideas. And then the question evolved and it turned into, do you think because you're children that perhaps you can come up with even better ideas or more creative ideas or have a way of seeing things that could create something for the environment that perhaps wouldn't exist if you were adults or even adults could? And of course they all said, yes, absolutely. And they're right to say that. And so then we kept going on with this line of thinking, and they brought up Team Seas, which none of us knew anything about. I had never heard about it in my life. I heard about Mark Rober and Mr. Beast and Team Seas. And so we researched it. We asked, what should we do now? They said research, and we did. We all researched it and realized that it was a very interesting and intriguing idea. They are known as the turtle class, the kinder class. And so they want to help the turtles, and they're have concerns about plastics in the oceans and the environment, and they wanted to feel proactive in this regard. So they wanted to do an ocean cleanup, which we tried to organize and could it. So then the next step is like, okay, so what now? And then when we came to it the second time, they were like, well, let's just give money. And we're like, okay, well, we can give money or we could raise money. Let's look at both sides and make a decision as to which would be the best way to go. And because we were studying poetry, it was during Poetry Month that there was going to be a poetry slam, and they were doing poetry anyway. It's like, why don't we create a fundraising poetry book for Team Seas? Sell the book, and the funds of this book we can donate to Team Seas, and perhaps that's more than if we all dug into our own personal pockets, especially since you don't have jobs. And so they were like, you know, kind of dubious about this at first. And then we started watching the videos with paper and pencil in hand. And it's like, any ideas that come to you while you're learning about this robot that cleans the ocean, you know, go for it, draw it, make it, you know, make the visual of it. And they all did beautifully. And once that visual was created, the storytelling that came out of them about how that machine that they created was going to help the ocean, you know, that's when the flow started. And then that eventually also turned into not just stories, but poems and poetry, which they revised and wrote. They added colors and textures to their gorgeous pictures. And we eventually created this beautiful poetry book that they sold and raised something like $550 for Team Seas. They were implicit in the making of the posters that were placed at the poetry slam that was held, and actually had a table with the books and letting people know about the book that they were selling and why. And then they got up, each one of them, and read their poems out loud to an audience and had that experience as well, which was incredibly empowering. And then after all that, once the money started coming in, they each use their base 10 manipulatives to count the money and understand the difference between a $20 bill and a $100 bill, and what does $400 look like compared to $40, and you know, just like kind of putting math into this. And then finally, when they found out the story of how we got the printing done here in-house, and that meant that all the money could go to Team Seas, which made it the $550. They met the person who did the printing, who was also then the person who like officially donated our money on the website. The kids were ecstatic. And then that led to them taping out in the classroom a 100 square foot, 10 by 10 square foot space with 5 blocks up, so they can imagine the quantity of 550 pounds of trash out of the ocean. So this is kindergarten. And I am blown away in 5 to 6 weeks just how much learning happened and to what extent and how much joy and empowerment they got out of it. And that has to do with the fact that we were listening to them, and we got the ball tossed and we tossed the ball back, and it continued and it reached its natural end. So
Thank you. Next slide, please. We have a few other little projects that the students embarked on this year. Our second graders were having a really tough time learning about money. And the teacher and I were back and forth. We invited all our teachers in, and something they would always come in with were little pens and notebooks. So they created the Innovative School supply store, which started very small, but ended up taking over the whole welcome center of the school. And you see a picture of all of them down there, very proud. They also raised money and donated it to one of the social justice causes that we were here at Temple. So that was just another deep study that they embarked on. And then next slide, please. As well, our first graders were studying about the neighborhood, and they were talking about the needs and wants of different community members. And they had also were pen pals working with a school in Guatemala. And the children at the school and the teachers were saying that they were having a tough time getting books for the kids. And our kids were like, no way, that's not okay. What can we do to help? That was them right away. What are we going to do to help? So we said to them, well, what do you want to do to help? They wanted to throw a bake sale. It wasn't your ordinary little lemonade bake sale. It's turned also again into a really big deal. They all cooked, they brought stuff in, and we invited our entire school and Temple community to come purchase. The children then took a trip to the local Barnes and Noble, and they purchased the books in Spanish for them to send over. And when we were packing them up and taking them to send, we came into another stumbling block of a $500 bill to ship everything over there. So I said to them, well, what are we going to do? They decided then that they wanted to make slime for everybody and that they would have a slime party. So we sent out advertisement. Every kid had to come in with money to donate to make slime. And finally, we were able to send those books off to Guatemala for them. Next slide, please. Our goal is for the children to love learning. Our curriculum is anchored in meaningful experiences, providing learning opportunities that promote collaboration, critical thinking, and create curiosity, creativity, and joy. Next slide. And here we have more about our innovative approaches. Next slide. I talked a little bit earlier about playful learning and learning playfully in kindergarten and first grade. That's a kind of obvious thing, but what does that look like for older children? So we talk a lot about that as a team. The little garden bed you see there, that's actually what Miriam was talking about. That was 2 years ago. That was the garden. It just was one bed, and it really turned into like this huge garden that we're looking forward to having the kindergartners take care of for many, many years. The other slide is a picture of materials. And that was actually during a story workshop. The children were asked to write about a topic, and sometimes they get stuck and they can't think of what they want to write about. So we always have an opportunity for them to play and fool around with loose parts, and kind of, it's really magical as they're playing with these loose parts and these materials. They're naturally telling these stories. So like Miriam had alluded to earlier, it's the teachers are really observing what they're talking about, ways that they're thinking, and then we bring it back to them as ideas for potentially writing stories. Next page, please. We believe that academic growth rests upon a positive foundation of social and emotional development. And we know that in order for deep academic work to take place, a child must be known and feel like they belong. We give the learners the time and space to talk about how they feel. I think that if you came to visit, that would be something you would feel right off the bat here. Everybody knows everybody. No one walks by anybody. We know when someone's having a bad day. We know when they want to hang out and talk. We know when they want to be by themselves. It's a very beautiful sense of belonging here at our school. Okay, next page, please. And we believe schools should be a place for learning how to live and be a productive member of society. Next slide. We live and learn Jewishly every day, joyful ways, and we view families as essential partners along their children's educational journey. Next slide. I'm going to read a quote that we as a teaching team had talked a lot about this year. It's by Meg Carter and Ann Palo, who said, I'm going to read it. We identify with the tribe of educators profoundly discouraged by the overall direction our beloved profession has taken. The runaway train of accountability-driven, assessment-heavy teaching disregards curious minds and sidelines pedagogical practices that honor the deep longings and intellectual vitality of children and their educators. This runaway train has carried us to a story, a reality that has come to dominate our field, in which curriculum is created to be teacher-proof because teachers are seen as the weak link between learning goals and measurable outcomes. They continue by saying, quality has become a story of professional development focused on compliance issues, commercial curricula with accompanied assessment tools, and program accountability tied to funding from state rating systems. In the US, we are living a story, a reality in which programs fill children's days with less play and more directed adult designed activities conceived in the name of quality and laden with the values of consumerism. We believe another story is possible, and it starts within everyone's classroom. We're asking you all, like we ask ourselves every day, what kind of educator do you want to be? And what kind of world do you want to participate in making? Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
The next slide has a little bit about our website, how to get in touch with us here. And anyone have any questions, we'd be happy to help answer them the
Yes.
best that we can.
Stacy, I'll also drop a link to your website in just a moment in the chat.
Thank you.
And if you have any questions, feel free to come off mute or drop it in the chat. So I see Melissa asked a question. Can you talk a little more about the learning arcs you mentioned?
Sure. So each different grade for social studies and science, we have essential questions that we put forward to the teachers and the children at the beginning of the year. For example, in kindergarten, it's learning about your school family, yourself. And then those are the questions that are posed to the learners. And each year, like I said, it kind of takes a different direction of how they're going to explore those learning arcs.
But it's a framework.
It's a framework, yeah. I see Margie Zeskine there. You want to wave hello? She's the head of school. Thanks, Margie, for supporting. Thank you all so much for joining us. It was
Yeah.
a good treat for us as well.